Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to a free workshop I'm putting on about the compare and despair cycle. If you don't know me, my name is Ellicia Turner. I'm a certified life coach. I help clients one-on-one with basically the basics of reparenting yourself, feeling your feelings, doing a lot of inner child work, and kind of repairing really old wounds so we can create a future that feels in alignment, that feels exciting, that feels calm and peaceful, and maybe doesn't emulate the emotional addiction cycles that we experienced as children. The stress and the addiction to drama and reactivity and kind of arguing and all the things that, our beautiful, loving parents oopsie daisy passed down to us. We want to kind of end those cycles. So that's what I help people with. I love it. It is my soul's work for sure. But I also love putting on free classes every now and then. And comparison has been coming up for me big time as I grow my business. It's something I kind of stopped doing in the realm of romantic relationships and just like my appearance in general. Like I've really transcended out of the compare and despair cycle in other areas of my life, but I'm seeing it come back in my business. So I thought it'd be a great time to talk about it, to kind of unshame it, because we're all humans, we're all normal, and we all do this. And it can be painful if we don't have awareness around it. So I have my notes down here today. They're usually on my computer. So I will be looking down and I don't care. So when we are comparing ourselves, what we're essentially longing for is a feeling. And we really need to help ourselves by putting our finger on the exact feeling we're looking for, and then pausing, slowing down, and seeing that that feeling isn't going to come from the external comparison trigger that we think it's going to come from. We need to slow down enough. We need to dissect things enough to realize that what we're really wanting is a feeling. And it's usually some flavor of secure, certain, confident, courage, empowered, right? Fulfilled. It's some deep spiritual emotion that's not very common in our culture, in our society. We are a very surface level culture. There's a lot of facades and pretension everywhere, a lot of contrived interactions. There's not much depth. But as humans, it is in our nature to search for depth, to want these deeper, more nuanced, and bigger, juicier feelings. And so comparison isn't a bad thing. It's just pointing to that depth of our humanity that we all have. It's pointing to an experience we're longing for that comes in the form of a feeling, not having a thing, not looking a certain way, not achieving a thing. That's why we always feel so empty. We think, if I just get all these credentials, or if I get all of this status, or if I just prove all these people wrong by doing this, this, and this, we feel so empty at the end, because it's not about the thing external. It's all about an internal search we're on. And so I want to point people in the right direction, because y'all, and myself included, years ago, we were all going in the opposite direction of what we're really wanting. And so I'm like, hey, let's do a 180. And let's start working toward what we actually want and get closer to that, right? It's not overnight. It's not going to snap your fingers and there's your feeling, buddy. It's so easy. It's hard, but it's going to be hard either way. You might as well let it be hard as you're moving toward creating that massive, juicy, nuanced, beautiful, sacred human feeling. So our brain, when it's comparing, it's looking for that feeling in places it's not going to be. And so this class today is about redirecting that. And we want to look at the two emotions of jealousy and envy before we dive in. If you're on my email list, these were both, the class basically started with both of these emails. So you've already heard some of this, so I'm just going to sum it up nicely. Jealousy points to our fears of abandonment, our fears of experiencing pain, of judgment from other people. And jealousy comes up a lot when we're comparing and despairing, because that's literally at the heart of comparing ourselves. It's a jealousy. And jealousy has a kind of malicious undertone, whereas envy has more of a camaraderie tone of like, oh, I would love that. And I'm happy for you. And I would like that someday. Jealousy is like malicious, like, I want that and you shouldn't have it. I should be the one having it. It's almost like we project out the pain we feel in ourselves, the ways we've rejected ourselves, and we try to reject someone else who's embodying what we want. And so it's super fascinating to dive into, to think about, to just spend time thinking about what's the difference in the feeling in your body when you feel jealousy versus envy, and how those are at the heart of the compare and despair cycle. The despair is much louder if the dominant emotion is jealousy. It's a little quieter and more manageable if it's just envy. So let's use some concrete examples for both of these. Envy is if you see your friend on a European vacation, she's in Greece, she's taking pictures, and you're just like, oh, I want that. It's not so much I don't want her to have it because that belongs to me. It's like she could have it, but I could also have that too. And I'm really longing for it. And a part of me knows it's possible. So it's not so scary. The despair is not so bad, but it is an uncomfortable longing for something that I haven't experienced. And so that's envy in a nutshell. Jealousy, on the other hand, is your peer getting the promotion ahead of you at work, and it starts to feel malicious. It starts to feel toxic. And, it's like stagnant anaerobic waters that are starting to poison all the living things. That's jealousy. That's she shouldn't have that. I should. That's she doesn't deserve that. It becomes about morality and worth. And it's really triggering the heart of shame wounds, that's hard to say, that are really at the core of our society, because we live in an oppressive, supremacist society. And so those really are morality issues at the heart of it. And we are all swimming in that water, swimming in that tank. So we all have them. It's not a matter of, I'm not this, I don't have that. We don't know collectively how the unconscious works, and we don't realize how powerful it is until we start to really allow ourselves to be educated on it. Again, another very fascinating thing. So you aren't exempt, because what most people who think they're exempt from oppressive systems is they lack awareness, and they just haven't even begun to dive into it. They're avoiding it because it's uncomfortable, which makes sense. And so with that said, jealousy and envy are kind of the two emotions we're working with today. And with all life coaching work, we're expanding our emotional literacy, our vocabulary, and we're being very careful with the subtle language of emotions, because it does matter. It is important. Wow, little Ellicia feels validated right now, because she used to want to talk about this all the time, and she was told she was too sensitive and cared too much and was totally dismissed. So I'm looking back to her and I'm like, hey girl, look at us go. We're teaching people about the importance of the subtleties of language and the importance of emotions. That's fucking crazy. So let's freaking begin. Before we start the real bulk of this information, I need my missing puzzle piece, which should be at the beginning of every one of my calls. And here's my little picture, because we can't learn anything new. We can't open ourselves up to new perspectives and new insights on anything unless we understand the dynamics of awareness. We aren't taught as children, like, hey, you're going to really lack awareness as you grow up in this world. You're going to internalize a lot of things that you're not really realizing you're internalizing. A lot of stuff is going to get hardwired into your brain that you did not consent to. And you're going to operate as though you're fully aware, but really you're missing about 98% of what's really going on. And that's mind-boggling that more people aren't talking about awareness, that it's not at the heart of every conversation, and it's not openly admitted like, hey, I'm learning. I'm figuring things out. I am not all aware, all enlightened. I'm like just beginning to open that door and see what's possible and discover what's really going on in me. So without awareness, if you're the fish in the fish tank, not only is it completely covered with a thick, cloudy, murky mud, you can't see the rocks at the bottom, you can't see the food being dropped at the top, but it's also in a dark room. So it's in a dark room with no windows, can't see the clean water, like there is no clean water. It's just confusing, it's disorienting, it's frustrating. It's like you can almost sense like, I think there's a way I could be in a lighter tank with cleaner water, with more windows, but I don't know how because I'm so shrouded in darkness. That's what it's like to lack awareness. It's anxiety inducing. This is where you have panic attacks. This is where depression wipes you out. It's not something you can sit with comfortably because it's just darkness. You are in the dark. You don't even know you're a fish in water. You don't even know you're a fish in a tank and there's an ocean out there, right? It's just you're so far gone without awareness that shame takes over. Unconscious patterns remain in control, meaning you don't see where your power is. You don't see how you can make those patterns conscious and change them. You don't see why you're doing what you're doing. You kind of are clouded with a very critical self-hatred, and you're stuck. It essentially feels like you're stuck, like you're helpless, like you're a victim. And in a sense, we are victims here. Like we're victims to ourselves, but it's very much so real. And no one's coming around to teach us like, hey, except for Ellicia, hi, I'm trying. No one's coming around to teach us like, hey, the problem isn't the mud. It's not that the lights are out. It's that you don't have awareness of how to start cleaning the water and turning the lights on. That's what awareness gives us. So when we go up here and we start opening the door to awareness, we learn what awareness even is. We start to turn the lights on. You can see the food dropping into the tank. You can kind of see, oh, I'm in a tank right now. Like I could be in a larger body of water. You start to really question and realize things, and it brings in the ability to consciously redirect your brain. It is so empowering. Nothing is like it. It's better than getting a promotion at work. It's better than a parent saying, I'm proud of you, because you're finally in the driver's seat of your life and you're not a victim anymore. And you never want to go back to victimhood once you have a taste of awareness, once you realize I have the ability and the power to clean up this water and to gain more and more awareness. And it's a lifelong journey. The second, I promise you, the second you're like, I'm absolutely aware and I don't need to learn anything else, the water is going to start getting dirty and it's going to start clouding in again. So with that said, we have to know a lack of awareness is rampant if you live in Western society. And we're just starting to bring it in. And you see this with the waves of change, with the waves of activism, with the waves of just kind of our systems crumbling at the seams, because our systems are set up to thrive with a lack of awareness, and too many people are gaining awareness. So it's just falling apart. The threads are threading. And so as this pertains to the compare and despair cycle, I'm going to show you the cycle today. You're not going to be able to do the simple things that I'm going to show you today if you don't have a awareness practice. And so I'm just going to give you that little caveat. I'm going to give you some nice reasons why your brain compares and despairs. I'm going to show you the cycle and I'm going to give you homework. But if you don't have an awareness practice, and really the prerequisite to an awareness practice is the ability and the willingness to sit in discomfort without thinking like you're going to die, which is really hard for people who haven't been taught how to sit with discomfort, then it's going to be really hard. And so I just want to prepare you for that. Awareness comes with self-inquiry, thought work, and by and large, life coaching. The community I'm plugged into for life coaching. I know there's a lot of life coaching out there. I know you can get certified on the internet in a day, but it's your work as an individual to discern and decide who is in integrity and not. So I myself know I'm in integrity, so I don't need to go look for approval, which we're actually going to talk about today. But as a viewer, please note that the life coaching community, the one that's in integrity, the way I see it, is the most powerful awareness practice out there. I myself have eyes on my brain because I know on my own I'm missing a lot. And so it's not a matter of if you need help, you're weak or you're broken or something's wrong. It couldn't be more the opposite. We're all human and we're actually here to mirror back to each other our blind spots, what we're missing. And really what I see big picture, I like to think in a 400-year plan, is we're stopping the individualized, like do everything on your own, don't ask for help. And we're trying to put back on top the idea of a healthy community makes a healthy individual. It's not the other way around. It's not like healthy individuals make a healthy community. We really need that community to be on top. And to be in community, you have to be able to face yourself and each other with compassion and curiosity. So don't want to get too far off track, but with that said, let's begin. So like I said, this is our agenda for the call. We're going to cover 3 big reasons why compare and despair cycle happens, where it originates, what perpetuates it, and kind of just the experience through every stage. That's what we're going to do in the comparison cycle. And then I'm going to give you some homework so you can start redirecting your brain and stop kind of letting it pummel over you. There obviously aren't only 3 reasons, and it's very hard for me to constrain to just 3 reasons. So please be aware that there's a plethora of reasons, and I'm only plucking out a couple under really big umbrella categories so you can see how nuanced it is, how complex it is, and just start to build that awareness. That's all we're doing all the time is we're questioning things, building awareness. So the first reason, we have to look at the system of capitalism. We have systemic issues, not personal issues. So comparison, when you're in high school and you're getting graded on a 1 to 100 scale, and then you're turning around and looking at your body and the weight on the actual physical scale next to someone else's body, you're in a constant flux of comparing yourself. And this isn't an accident. We don't have a number grading system on accident. Capitalism functions with more and more factory workers, which essentially means more and more non-critical thinkers. You go into public school. I know it was funded. I forget what the guy's name was because it makes me so angry when I think about it. But did you know that public school was funded with an agenda and someone at the top decided, I want public school to emulate factories. So they're going to work an 8 to 5. They're going to have bells to dictate their time clock instead of nature, instead of the natural cycles of their body, instead of checking in with themselves. They're going to respond to an authority so they can learn how to be compliant and listen. So they'll be good factory workers for our beautiful, beautiful capitalism. And we literally started herding children into compliance schools that create vicious cycles of comparison that have us abandoning ourselves, losing our worth, seeking approval from authority. And really, you can see how your body, the wisdom and the intelligence of your body resists public school. I think it's breaking out more and more the newer the generations that go through it. I know for me, public school was traumatizing. It was awful. I hated it. Everything down to being tired, like having to go into high school at 7:30 and being so tired, my brain not being wired for I have a neurodivergent brain, it's just not wired to operate that way. So it was very painful, like the whole way through, and then being terrified of social interaction and forcing to be in a social interaction 5 days a week, all day long. Like I needed to learn differently. I needed to learn alone and quiet and follow my passions. I couldn't just sit there and focus on something that didn't interest me. It was like splitting hairs. And so we need to be aware of the larger system that influences our subtle behaviors. They aren't a coincidence. They aren't an accident. They aren't individual. They are collective. And so we're comparing our grades and attaching grades, body, right, popularity contests, who you're dating, who you're friends with. We are essentially, what's the word I'm looking for? I just totally had a brain fart. I'm gonna have some lemonade. We're comparing ourselves, and what that does is it keeps us compliant and in the system. It's so painful to compare ourselves. It's so painful to attach a grade to our worth, to attach a body size to our worth, and yet we're just herded right into it. And when we're in pain, when we doubt ourselves, when we question our worth, when that's broken, yeah, we become wonderful factory workers. We go out into the world and we follow the rules of capitalism without questioning it, without protesting it, without saying, hey, let's organize as a community and create something different and better that actually works for us. We don't even think to do that because we're so exhausted from the pain that is competition and comparison. So I want you to see at the heart of it is we're learning productivity, appearance, among other things, are directly tied to our self-worth. We're told if you get a bad grade, it will impact the rest of your life. So we hyperfixate on proving our worth through getting an A on the test. Or if we really, really struggle on the test, we just throw our hands up and go, I guess I'm not good enough, right? I guess I'll, and it's so painful to think about little children literally experiencing this still today, going through the grading system, the factory working, making machine, and just they're losing their self-worth one day at a time instead of having it built up. You ever notice how little children, before they start kindergarten, they still have life in them. They still have rambunctious energy. They're so creative. They're so in tune with their emotions and their imagination. They're so in tune with their cycles of like, oh, I want to play now. I want to rest now. And it literally begins to be stamped out of them the older they get through the school system. My husband was homeschooled, and he still is like, he's so much quirkier than the guys I went to high school with because he didn't have quite the same experience. There was a lot more flexibility and leeway and pros and cons, but he's still so connected to his creativity. He still questions authority like a little kid would. He still says no when he wants to say no because it just wasn't as intense and as severe because he was homeschooled. Again, so fascinating. So if you look at the measuring stick of shame, that's also embedded in capitalism. How are you measuring up to peers? Did your parent ever compare you to other kids from other families and say, why can't you be like them? Do you know how painful that is for looking for your source of love to measure you up to someone? And then we internalize that and we turn around and we start measuring ourselves to everyone. I know for me, middle school, high school, all of it. It was a constant, exhausting state of comparison. Am I like her? Am I funny like her? Does he like me? Did I get a better grade than them on this test? Well, I did worse than them on the test. I did better than them, right? We're measuring ourselves in society by all these different factors, and then we grow up and do it as adults. Do I have enough kids yet? Do I make enough money? Do I have the jet ski and the cabin? Did I travel enough this year? Am I keeping up with the motherfucking Kardashians and Joneses and picket fences? Do I have the coolest ambiance in my home, the best furniture? I need to go to IKEA. I need the Norway looking stuff. Like, it's just embedded in everything. But without awareness, we just slap a normal sticker on it and never question it. And we need an awareness practice so we can just have the ability. It's not about being good, bad, right, or wrong, right? If you have the the Swedish home and the best furniture and the best body. It's not right, wrong, good, or bad. I'm not saying everyone go have ugly homes and do the opposite, right? But I am saying question it enough to like your reasons for doing it. At least be connected to you at the heart of what you're doing and why. That is why we need an awareness practice. But it can't be done without looking at the larger systems the individuals are in. We aren't walking these paths alone. And if I could just group all the clients I help together, I do one-on-one work, but if I could just shove us all in a room and see, we all have the same problems. It's not just us. We aren't alone. It would be so fucking healing. So I always try to communicate that and say these are systemic problems. You aren't living and existing in a vacuum. And these are oppressive systems, right? Capitalism, right? The economists, like, they're doing their best, bros, but the indigenous people had it figured out and colonizers came and fucked all that up. So anyway, not a very positive ending note, but let's move on. The second big system we're working with is patriarchy. And so I'm going to speak now specifically to people socialized as women. Patriarchy also negatively affects men, people socialized as men, people who identify as men. However, I myself as a woman, and I help women clients, and we are going to talk about the big piece of comparison in the compare and despair cycle is the male gaze on women. So if you are a male, a man, identify as a man, then this won't be a very applicable point for you, an applicable reason for you. And again, the most fascinating part of it is patriarchy negatively impacts men in different ways, right? It's really the idea. So we're not going to get into that because, again, this is the point. My brain wants to cover everything all at once. And so constraining is very hard for me. So let me pause with my lemonade. It's summer. I'm drinking lemonade even though it's 50 degrees outside. Okay. So when we're socialized as women, we're taught from a very young age that the male gaze is our most valuable currency. Is it our well-being? No. Is it making a lot of money because money is power in this society? Wouldn't that be cool? No, that's what men get to go do. They get to go get more money. Women have to live helpless to men and not have any systemic power. So interesting, right? Is it our intelligence, our ingenuity, our innovation, our creativity, our intuition, our softness, our divine feminine energy? Is it any of those things? Are those the most valuable currency to women? No. Okay. Okay, so it's just what males think of our appearance and our body, not about our mind, just how they look at us, right? As objects. I'm sorry, this gets me fired up because it's infuriating, right? This is where the binary of gender becomes harmful, oppressive, and violent. And people, unaware people, are fighting to keep it right now. They're fighting to keep their own oppression. And I don't think I can say fascinating enough today, my friends, but isn't that fascinating? There are women out there saying non-binary and alphabet people, like shitting on them when they are the ones lacking a severe level of awareness, fighting for their own oppression, wanting to keep these strict, rigid binaries where by gender, we are taught and socialized and conditioned to not care about our well-being, our brilliance, our sacredness, our power, but to care about how we look as objects to men, which is a very sexualized thing that even children experience. So isn't that fucking insane? So if you have a young child that is a girl, she is essentially being groomed to appear attractive to men. It's like prettying up a pony for the slaughter. I don't know, a pig maybe for the slaughter, right? Selling the pig. And so we're like pigs and we're prettying ourselves up And not a great analogy because, the better the pig, it'll be fatter and like, and for women, it's like, oh, be strong, like skinny with no fat on your bones. And it's very painful. And we start to make enemies of other women, right? And we start to compete and compare, and we start to compete for the male gaze, right? For the approval of men or anyone in an authority position, right? Because that's kind of the essence of a man, is a hierarchy. So the authority is the top position. And guess how the hierarchies work in Western culture? Every hierarchy at the top has a white man. And that leads me to talking about supremacy and how that plays a big piece in patriarchy. They were literally created hand in hand. They were shaking hands and they were like, let's do this thing together. We work well together. And they do, right? They complement each other in that they're both violations of the human spirit. They're both acts of violence against any level of differences, of diversity, of going off of the norm, of having more complexity and nuance. They work really well in that they're both extremely oppressive, but if you know how the human biology works, we will cling to it because it feels more certain than uncertain. And for safety, we need to feel certain. So it's a real trick of the mind when we fall for systems like this as safe and righteous, and we should keep them. Like, anyone fighting to keep patriarchy and supremacy culture is just severely confused and has a lack of awareness. And we do this on the tiny micro scale and on the macro scale. And I'm talking about the micro scale today because I think that's a more palatable place to begin. And a lot of white moderate people are just now beginning to open up their eyes to the oppression that's happening and how we are the violators, the silence is violence, the perpetuators of so many marginalized folks being mistreated and suffering at the hands of our ignorance, because more of us aren't breaking out and doing the uncomfortable work of gaining awareness and making internal changes, micro, macro changes. It has to start on the micro. So here's how it looks on the micro. It's making sure you look the best and all extensions of you look the best, down to your home, your body, your clothes, even your children. I see so toxically parents everywhere today projecting their supremacy biases onto their children. They have to sound right. They have to look right. They have to speak right. They have to follow the gender norms right. Or the parent gets so flustered and frustrated. It's triggering because the parent is essentially working with that child to boost their own ego, right? They're not seeing them as an individual worthy in their own right of their uniqueness and wanting to explore who they are as a person. They're caught again in this lack of awareness, this ego projection, and this make sure you look and act how I want you to look, make sure it looks better than everyone else's, or else I'm going to yell and shame you until you comply, because that's what happened to me. And it's very sad. So it's not about blaming or shaming the adult that's doing that. It's seeing the larger cycle at play and how it's just being perpetuated through generations, and how we bear a responsibility to do something to change that. Because if we don't, who the fuck will? And the earth doesn't have a lot of time, right? I got my degree in environmental science, and it's just like, oh, fuck, hurry up, people. So that's another reason why we compare and despair. And finally, we do have our biology. We have evolved as humans, as a tribal people. And I learned this once as it pertained to public speaking, but it goes so much bigger than just being on a stage. But essentially what's happening in the biology of our primitive brain, our nervous system, our limbic system, everything that's happening in our body, when we're separated from a crowd in any sense, and that could be not following the cookie cutter path in life, right? Graduate high school, college, get your degree, work until you die, have your 2.5 kids, right? If you separate from that cookie cutter life, that too is separating from the crowd. If you explore your gender expression, if you identify as a gender you're not born with, that's separating from the crowd because everyone else is stuck in the rigid ways and they're too scared to leave it. So when you become an outlier and you want to take a different route, it literally feels like death. It feels like you won't survive without that tribe. But today's tribe is oppressive. It's not natural. It's now becoming more dangerous to stay in this tribe than it is to escape it. And so we want to look out at our intuition, our soul starting to speak through us louder than our primitive safety mechanisms. Our souls want out. They want to leave this tribe because they're starting to see this is dangerous, this is violating, this might be okay and safe for me in some places, but it's literally killing people in other places, and that doesn't jive with me. That doesn't sit well. And so we want out, but we also have to see the part of us that does want to stay in because of this visceral biology, this visceral experience in our body that feels like a death. We also don't want to die, right? So it's so conflicting. There's so much cognitive dissonance. I want out of this oppressive system because it's also oppressing me, whether I'm aware of it or not. But I'm also afraid of dying. And I know if I leave, it's going to feel like a death. Maybe not like a bullet wound, but I mean, fuck, that's happening too in our oppressive system. The gun violence, like, don't even get me started. So we just have to see the death is more metaphorical. Yes, it's painful. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, you'll experience it viscerally, but it's metaphorical. We won't actually physically pass. Our body will still survive and be here, even if we split off from this crowd, even if we take a different way. We are the brave ones, essentially. And I want to be careful to include like Black trans women are the brave ones, especially the ones that were breaking out of the tribe years ago. The whole entire LGBTQ community, the activists, the scientists that aren't letting the systems dictate what they research and hypothesize, the new ideologies that are coming in, the more nuanced teachers that are saying, hey, like, there might be other ways we can think about this. These are the bravest of the brave, and they're doing such important and heavy work, and the load would be much lighter the more people we have with this willingness to sit in the experience of this painful discomfort, but also as long as it's taking us out of the oppressive tribe, then we're headed in the right direction and it will alleviate eventually. Oops, I didn't put this on my coaster. So the biology of compare and despair, like I said, it's very straightforward. When we are separated from the tribal crowd, we are petrified. And so to stay in the crowd, we very unconsciously use comparison to make sure we're not accidentally like getting out, which is a very exhausting thing to have to make sure, oh, am I matching them? Am I doing the right thing? I'll just do whatever you say to stay in the crowd. I don't really care about integrity or honesty or facing uncomfortable things. I'd rather stay in the tribe above all else. So we compare for safety, literally. We compare ourselves to be like, oh, I'm supposed to look like that. Oh, that's how the beauty trends are shifting. So let me do this now. It's so unconscious. You see it with the lashes and the lip fillers. It's like, oh, that's what the tribe is doing. Okay, I've got to go do it. Do you even really want to do it? Maybe some people do, absolutely, but maybe others aren't even aware that they're doing it compulsively for a safety they can't describe, that they don't have language for. And it's all due to our biology. And so we compare our bodies, we compare our styles, we compare our homes in all the same ways. And it's to make sure we can stay in the tribe, even though parts of our soul really want out. So I'll wrap that up with that because I don't think I had touched on the compare piece because I have ADHD. So essentially, we've talked a lot about the comparing component. Now let's take a minute to touch on the despairing component. The compare in and of itself is an action we take deriving from an emotion like jealousy or envy or fear of abandonment or any flavor of wound. Despair kind of is the meta model upon the model. Model is the self-coaching model I teach my clients. And that is happening when we are searching for our worthiness, our approval, and our safety in all the wrong places, right? We can't rely on our biology for safety. And that's tough to learn because it's almost like, hey, let's learn to trust ourselves. And a part of learning to trust yourself is acknowledging and pointing out that our biology, our reaction to things sometimes isn't always sound and safe and accurate and reliable. And that's okay. And we can trust ourselves anyway, but we have to point out that awareness of like, our biology is not a reliable source for what's safe and what's not safe, because look at the vast majority of the global majority is choosing to uphold oppressive, toxic, dangerous, violent systems. That's not reliable if you really broke it down and thought about it. Same for approval. When we're raised in supremacy cultures and patriarchal systems with a ton of hierarchies, we're very confused about approval. And approval is a basic human need. It's not just like approval of how you look and what you're doing for a living. It's approval that, hey, your existence here is valid and you belong. It's the most basic need, especially for children. But really, when you got 5, 6-year-olds headed into the factory system making machine, they start to lose that approval if they even had it to begin with. But they start to immediately displace that, hey, you're inherently worthy just because you exist. And I'm so glad you're here. And look at all the ways you belong. And look at how much better you make this world because you're here. That's not happening. In fact, the opposite of is happening. We're getting disproved of. We're getting dismissed, invalidated, right? We're being told, we don't care what your experience is. This is the rule you got to follow. This is the way you got to go. And we don't give a fuck about what you're experiencing. It's happening all the time. And yet it's so normalized and we don't name it that. We don't use that language, but that's essentially the essence of what it is. Isn't that fucking crazy? And I don't know why I'm going down up, but worthiness, right? Very tied to approval, but it's like a self-approval. Like, what am I worthy of? A lot of us are settling for less because of all these really big systems at play, because they are successfully oppressive. We've learned to oppress ourselves. Self-worthiness is, I give myself what I want. You have to, if you want to be able to give yourself the desires you want, you have to have the energy for it. And when we don't have self-worthiness, when we don't have the ability to approve of ourselves and to discover safety within, we're too tired to have desires. We become very easy pawns in the scheme of things. And this makes me angry because I don't want your exhaustion to be the reason you don't live the life you want. I want you to be aware why you're exhausted. It's not your fault. Nothing's gone wrong with you. You're not broken. The system is incredibly broken and you're swimming in the water of it and you're not even aware of it and you're blaming yourself. So let's start building your self-worthiness in these broken systems. Get your energy back up so you can become more of a powerful force. And we are so powerful when we're connected to our desires. We are so powerful when we give ourselves what we want. We don't wait for the systems to come do it for us. Obviously, they don't give a fuck about us, right? And that is including your biology. Your biology doesn't give a fuck about your happiness. It's like in the experience of constant threat, And again, that's draining you. So we have to turn these down, turn these up. And we turn them up by connecting within and seeing where they really derive from, because you've been taught they derive from outside of you, and you've been wildly disappointed, I'm guessing, for a very long time. And so let's acknowledge that and stop disappointing yourself, stop punishing yourself. Little plug for my podcast. All right, y'all, here's the cycle. It starts right here, so stay with me. We see an external object of desire. And this is where the confusion begins right away. We see something we don't have, whether it's an experience, a physical possession, a person, or a status label. There could be more, but this is what my brain is offering right now. It sounds nice and complete to me. I don't know about you. There's an external thing. So let's use a couple of examples. Your friend gets a new car and you're like, oof, I want that. Or it could be someone in a similar field as you is like just booming with success and you're kind of back here struggling and you're like, ugh. So that's more of an experience you're wanting than a possession, right? You want to experience success, and that might look like numbers game. That might look like, sales or a status or a credential. It could be a person you want to impress, right? That external object in this case is, I want them to approve of me. I want them to come and tell me I'm good enough, and I want to hear it from them. That's the object. You can see it's like not something you're holding, but it's an external thing that you don't have control over, that you're desiring because you don't have it right now. So it's like, this is where the compare is triggered in the I don't have it. And so this isn't a good, bad, right, or wrong thing, but it does instantly trigger an emotional deficit. If we're looking at emotions, we have a balance of 50% positive and negative. We've been taught to shame the negative. And so that's work in and of itself. You got to go work on that. I can help you with that if you want. But you have to be aware that you've been shaming the negative half of your human experience, and that's unnecessary, and we got to stop doing that. An emotional deficit is when that balance gets like really out of whack. And most shamed people, you're in a constant emotional deficit. You're in a constant state of just imbalance with like how to navigate and how to process and allow in and work through your feelings and how to respond to them and how to show up with them, right? It's a deficit in that you're severely lacking awareness and self-trust and kind of the worthiness, the basics that you need. An emotional surplus is when we're feeling empowered as fuck and confident. And even when negative, painful things happen, it's like we can go right with the strides of it. It doesn't totally knock us off the balance beam. We're just so well rehearsed and well practiced at allowing it and working with it. And we still have control, conscious control over our reactions and how we show up and what we decide to think in lieu of negative emotions. So there's my little spiel on emotional deficits. So it triggers an emotional deficit. And I want you to literally think of a graph, like an economics graph of a deficit and a surplus. So you are going down the chart and feeling empty. And it's not a fun roller coaster. If we're on roller coasters, we want it to be fun and exciting, not painful and miserable. So then it takes us down to the actual model of comparing and despairing. So you see the object, emotional deficit, and then you start to measure. Let's say we pull out our metaphorical measuring sticks of shame. It's like a dick measuring contest every day. And we're like, oh, we look in the mirror and we're like, oh, pinch, pinch. Oh, no, wrinkle, wrinkle, wrinkle. Look at her, look at them. Oh, no, I need to get a cooler journal because this one's not cool enough. I'm just kidding. This is the coolest fucking journal ever. Oh, no, they upgraded their house, so I need to upgrade my house. And oh, they're moving forward in the company or they're leaving the company. What if I need to leave? Right? We just start comparing. It's a very mental game, but it's a very real thing. And that comes with the despair, right? With the I'm not worthy, I'm not approved of, and I'm not safe. So this, of course, triggers old wounds. This is where present problems sing echoes of the past. What happens in our previous experiences comes up in the today. And it's not really about the thing today. That's the biggest piece. We think it's about the external object, but really it's singing an old song of a wound that we haven't cleaned up and faced and healed. So it triggers fears of inadequacy, fears of abandonment, kind of the big ones, the fears of judgment, and it's painful. Did you guys know that when wounds are triggered, it's painful and that's okay? And that doesn't mean they shouldn't be triggered. It means they actually should. So we're going to stay in this upper circle for now, just so you can see where the vast majority of humans are. Not many break off and come down here, but this is what I'm going to teach you and give you today. So you are motherfucking welcome. So they're triggered. And guess what? This is how we're taught to deal with wounds and pain and discomfort. Avoid. Hi, welcome to America, where we avoid our feelings and pretend like they're not real and gaslight ourselves and lie to ourselves and oppress ourselves because we're really good factory workers. Join us today for citizenship. So what this does, once we avoid the pain and we uphold the facade and the pretension and the supremacy, is we reinforce our unconscious patterns. We actually reinforce our lack of awareness. We have less control. The more times we cycle through this, there's more confusion. It does get worse. That's why when like your stuckness starts or your resentment starts or your confusion and overwhelm starts, you need to begin then. You need to start working through it then. You need help then, not 5 years later when you're going through this and it's getting bigger. The resentment bigger, the stuckness is bigger, the overwhelm is bigger, the anxiety is bigger. We don't want it to get bigger. That's harder to undo and reverse that momentum and redirect when it's bigger. So please don't wait. Don't wait, my friends. So then you just go right back through the cycle. You can either get the object of desire, you can still get it. People will power their way into shit. And they really bank on that external thing changing their feelings. But guess what? They feel more disempowered just with a new rug, right? They feel more insecure, but with a new letter at the end of their name, right? And so that I didn't really put in there, but I want you to see it's possible to go get that external object. You could get it or not get it, but it doesn't matter. You're disempowered either way. That's the frustrating piece, is we're just like, wait, I got it though. And now I'm comparing myself, but I'm still comparing myself and I'm still insecure. And so this is the big meaty bite of it, right? The external object we don't have, whether we have it or not, we're still disempowered. We're still torturing ourselves and competing with other people and doing mental gymnastics and exhausting ourselves because we're chasing external things. So whether we get the external thing or not, moot point. But where we're choosing to cycle and experience our life, big important, right? Be aware of this. Have the awareness of what you're doing and why, and acknowledge it, right? It's not about shaming you. Oh, you shouldn't be here. Oh, it's better down here. No, we're human. I'm here. That's literally why I'm creating this class, is I'm like, oh, I'm feeling really disempowered. Okay, it's not a problem. I'm a fucking human. But what can I do about it? I like to find answers. And here are the answers, my friend. It's beautiful, right? When I stopped prioritizing the male gaze as my most valuable currency and I started prioritizing my brilliance as my most valuable currency, oh my God, heavens really do part and angels really do sing, and it comes in the form of empowerment. So, wow, it's already 5:54. So let's go through the cycle again, because again, this is normal. It's normal to see something and have a desire. Desires are good, and this is part of the desire process. So it's not bad or wrong. We want to be inspired to want things we don't have. We don't want to have everything. That would be such a boring life. So we'll start here. We feel the emotional deficit. Nothing's gone wrong if you're more well-rehearsed and have an awareness practice and you don't get knocked out. Then you'll compare and despair because that will just kick in, because look at all the systems hardwired in you. You can't really avoid it. Don't try to avoid it. Don't shame yourself if you start comparing and despairing. Just go straight down to, okay, what's at the heart of this? The heart of this is a wound. The heart of this is pain and discomfort that I have successfully avoided until this cycle was kicked in. And so when we're there, instead of avoiding it and reinforcing the unconscious, we use it as an opportunity to face our pain, and we are willing to face it. Oh, full body tingles. That is why when I teach people to be excited about their triggers and to be excited to process disappointment and rejection and fear, it sounds a little masochistic. I don't know if that's the right word. Sadist? Is that sex stuff? I don't know what I'm saying, but you get what I mean. It's an opportunity to face pain, and it's the only access card out of that cycle into more empowerment and security. Security that comes within. I don't mean external security. That's the illusion, ultimate illusion. So we validate and process the pain. And I recommend working with an integrity coach to help you fucking through that seamlessly in a safe, calm, peaceful environment with so much love and with so much care and attention on your wounds. You won't be invalidated, dismissed, gaslit, or made to feel wrong. You will be safe. It won't be a system pathologizing your pain when it's really a systemic problem, right? You won't be made to feel like an outlier or not normal. So this is what I'm saying to you. Find a coach. I don't care if it's not me, but make sure it's someone in integrity that can do all these things I'm saying to validate and process your pain. Take the opportunities. I want you to flip a wire in your brain to be excited when your fears of inadequacy are triggered. Sounds insane, but it's life-changing, and it's the only way to access empowerment. So you learn how to question things, you learn how to redecide what you want your pattern to be, and you actually have the ability to do that when you're really validating and processing. If you're not accurately or fully validating and processing, you won't get to the question and redecide piece, because that must come first. The feeling piece comes first. So once you do it, you start to shift and change the pattern. The change in pattern is kind of like a reroute on Google Maps. It's like you didn't have the desire and now you do, so you need a reroute. You need to shift something. And it's not about shifting into a morally more worthy, good, better pattern than the shitty, wrong, worthless pattern you were in because you were a piece of shit before. No, you were already worthy in this pattern, but your desire born through you a new pattern that's now required. That's the fun of life. That's the human experience, the contrast, the awareness. It makes it richer. It makes it juicier. It makes it more fun and less serious and stressful. So you shift the pattern however you please, knowing that I'm going to have another pattern to shift later, and that will be fine. And I'm not more or less worthy here or there. Then we start to realize with our showing up consciously and changing a really deep wound and tending to it and healing it, we start to see, oh, that very original object that sparked my desire, it's possible for me to have that, right? It's possible for me to have that experience and that feeling and that thing. If you want to go to Greece, right? If you want to be the one to get the next promotion, it's possible. It might not feel possible when we're stuck in pain and in really rigid, confining ways of thinking. But once you're down here, shifting patterns, connecting to yourself, validating yourself, oh, the realm of possibility opens up tenfold. And so you really start to see it's possible. You start to take inspired action. You start to blow your mind. This is the life coaching world. This is the world I live in now. Of course, I go over here all the time, but I go this way. Oh, it's like the infinity thing, which I watched that infinity document on Netflix. I highly recommend it. It's awesome. Anyway, you take action, and if you have enough courage and if you trust yourself and if you don't quit, right? Quitting is the only form of failure. You basically fail your way there until you have it. Then you achieve your desire, right? then you actually get what you want. You get the relationship you want. You get the job you want. You get the feeling of worthiness that you've been wanting your whole fucking life. You give that to yourself. It's unparalleled. It's unmatched. It's the magic of being alive. And then, of course, you'll go right back to the next day. There's going to be another wound you discover. There's never a point where you can take an off ramp from this human experience. And that's okay. It's okay that you have a lot of wounds. Just accept them and just be like, yep, I'm definitely going to find a wound here one of these days again, right? I'm definitely not going to live under the illusion that I'm wound free and I'm totally healed and enlightened. No, because I have a human brain and I'm also hardwired for capitalism, patriarchy, and my biology, which is unreliable, right? Which doesn't make it good, bad, right, or wrong. We just need the awareness. I hope I've made myself clear. This is the cycle: disempowered, insecure, empowered, secure. It's the yin and the yang, baby. So here's your homework. There are two things you need to do for compare and despair. You need to locate where your true desire is. The illusion, the cloudiness of all your fears have you confused about what your desire is. You start by thinking, I need their approval. You think that's your true desire, but it's not. The approval isn't what you're wanting from them. You're wanting a feeling from you, and you need to locate that. And you need to know where it comes from is from you. Okay. So ask yourself these questions when you find yourself comparing. What do I want to feel? What feeling am I looking for as I'm comparing? Like when your brain's comparing, think about it. It's measuring itself up and it's kind of measuring it up to a standard. So just make the assumption, if I had that standard, what would I get to feel? Okay, so find a way to ask that question that resonates with your brain, clicks with your brain, so you can answer it, so you can locate your true desire. Then you'll realize, oh, it's not the relationship I'm wanting. I'm wanting deep intimacy within myself. Oh, that's one I found. I located my true desire when I was desperate for a romantic relationship. And then I got to the other side of what was in my way of feeling it. I was able to achieve my desire of a deep intimacy with myself. And I got to the point where I was like, if I die tomorrow and I never have this romantic relationship, I will die happy. I will die fulfilled because I actually located my true desire and gave that to myself. So my work right now in my business is locate my true desire. Why am I comparing myself? Why do I find myself in this avoidance and despair of not wanting to face something? And these are hard questions. That's why it's so much nicer. We're so quick to avoid it. It's so much nicer to work through it with someone professional who knows all these things and who can guide you right back when your brain wants to go, oh, but let's look over here at the plant because I don't want to talk about this. It's like, yes, there's the plant, and come right back here. And I know it's uncomfortable in your body. And yes, take a guess. What do you think it could be, right? We have to point back to ourselves for our answers. And brain is really, really good at avoiding ourselves and abandoning ourselves. But that's exactly at the root of our wounds. And so to heal them, we have to face ourselves. Second is create a solid plan to give yourself what you desire. So again, do this with a professional. Otherwise, your plan will have a secret hidden ego agenda of like, yeah, my true desire, I located it, but I still really, really, really want to get that relationship so I can prove all this and finally have someone else make me feel good and salt, right? It's just better to have another set of eyes, of trusting, safe eyes on your situation, so you can actually create a sturdy, solid plan that doesn't have any inklings of ego stuff embedded. So questions you can ask yourself for that plan is, who do I need to become to have this desire? And that's a powerful question. So really sit in it. Don't brush over, don't gloss over, go deep into that question. Who would I need to become to have and experience that desire? Your brain will find the answers if you just sit with the discomfort of the question. What do I have to let go of? Well, a lot of us have to let go of our insecurities. A lot of us have to let go of our safety blanket of keeping ourselves from awareness that's uncomfortable. A lot of us have to let go of our norms, of fitting in the box, of staying in the tribe. We have to let go of it. And and then integrate more courage, integrate more bravery, more willingness to be uncomfortable. So I kept that simple too. My God, I could have written a dissertation. But there you go. That's it for today. So this is my last piece that I'm going to leave you with because we're 5 minutes over. This is the heart. This is the mystery. This is the search of our soul. It's for worthiness, for approval, and for safety. And right now you have computer programming in your brain that has you searching for all of these things in the wrong places, in external locations, in oppressive systems that are hurting you, in a hard wiring that was prevalent hundreds of years ago in the Sahara Desert when tigers chased humans on the reg, right? It's just not working today, and we have to redirect, literally evolve our consciousness. Sounds like such a big job, and it is. We have to redirect how that programming is wired and go in and hardwire something new. And so for worthiness, again, this is like the tenderness of our early years. This is when we're born fresh and complete and intact and connected and already so intimate with ourselves and the divine. And, depending on how old it began for you, 2, 3, 4, 5, that inner child that it experienced all that oppression and violation and subtle manipulation and emotional dismissing and invalidating, that was painful. And so how your brain responds to that is it puts a little trauma pin in so you can keep functioning. So to go through and take out those pins, that is the key to redirecting, to finding our worthiness that comes from within. That's the only place we find it. And inner child work is literally visualizing, like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, is like reconnecting with that pain and going through a process of validating and acknowledging it and talking through it. And this is stuff I do with my clients all the time. It comes up constantly in our calls, and it helps turn up that worthiness. One little pin we pull at a time. We honor and validate that child that held so much wisdom, that was already so intact, but we started to kind of crumble apart. And so now as this adult, we're piecing together all of it and we're reconnecting with that inner child. That's a big piece for worthiness. For approval, a lot of this comes in social settings, and it's not so much past experiences as it is present day practices that we are wanting to gain awareness over. And these are really quick and easy shifts. This is just your run-of-the-mill thought work. We're doing a model. We're redirecting where that approval comes from, and it is so quick for the brain to do this. The other two, they're a little more nuanced and complex, and it takes some practice. It's like learning a new language, but thought work, man, we could bang out in a 20-minute session some approval you've been looking for a long time and turn that light bulb on, clean that fish tank, and just be like, damn, I'm good to go. There we go. I love thought work. We do that as well with my one-on-one clients. For safety, now this is complicated because we are working with an unreliable biology. And I don't mean your body is unreliable. You can trust your body. Your body is far more brilliant and wise than your brain is. But we have to reparent how we currently manage and react to our biology. We have to reparent ourselves in a way where we're not so dismissive, where we're not saying, get over it, you're fine, what's wrong? Like just the classic echoes of parents of the past that we now speak to ourselves in that way. We have to change that language. We have to approach ourselves differently. We need a different self-talk. And this is something I teach my clients as well. So like all things life coaching, these are the basics of your well-being, of your calm, of your peace, of your love, of your fulfillment. They are giant pillars. They need tender love, care, time, patience, attention, energy. right? They're not just going to strengthen themselves on their own. An Instagram post is not going to strengthen these. You have to sit down, you a la you, and fucking build it. It's like wanting to get a six-pack but never going to the gym. You have to do the emotional gym for these. You have to invest in it. And the more you do it, the more you'll really believe that they all come from you. They all come from within. It's sometimes hard to believe that when we're so entrenched in being told and exemplified that they come from outside of us. It's hard to just flip a switch and be like, oh, okay, they come from. No, we can understand it intellectually, but to apply it, we've got to do all of this. So that's it. If you want to work with me, if you want to start coaching together, you've got to book a consult. I have my scheduler on my website. My website is eliciaturnercoaching.com. You can go back to the beginning of this video if you want to see how to spell that. Click book consult and schedule at a time that works. And if you don't see any times that work, just email me. You can email me through my website. You can DM me on Instagram. But let's get started because I am ready to help you. I'm ready to teach you all of this stuff and then set you free as a free bird with a new life skill that is empowering and exciting and worth every minute and penny of the investment, in my opinion. So have a beautiful day. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.